Coming to you live from the Stack in Belfast City's Central Library, it's this week's Apocalypse. I'm your co-host, Kevin Lenihan. With me, as always, is John Ferris. John, how are you doing today?
Grand.
I thought you'd been finally possessed there for a second.
Yeah, sorry. By one of these horrendous books. One of these non-movies.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, no books. What is this? Well, actually, you know what? To be honest,
the greatest
you can get films and CDs at the library. So, yeah,
True.
I think we might be all right on that score today. But anyway, of course, you know, here we are once again in a scenario in which, oh no. So, I didn't know that there was an occult book section at Belfast Central Library. So
there's always an occult book section.
there's always, if you're looking for it, it's only there if you're looking for it. Yeah. You never just stumble across it. You know, you just get it into your head to do some research, and of course,
you just go up to the seemingly nice librarian, and then as soon as you mention the occult, they suddenly like turn and go, they become sinister and weird.
They do the thing where they look down, they move their head to look down, and then look up at you with their eyes and freak you out, and then
what can I do for you? I'm looking for occult books.
Third shelf from the back. Yeah, which is exactly what happened. And literally put in my hand this book. And I thought it was leather bound, and it is. I guess it's a form of leather, but there's some stuff on it here that makes me think that it may not be entirely animal leather as such. And you know, well, I think you can infer. So all I did was read the foreword out loud, and now all these books are flying off the shelves and attacking us, and everyone in the library is possessed by something, I think. And also there's ghosts flying around just freewheeling, which is great. So I say we move into the DVD rental section, which is a weird thing to say, but it is a real thing in the library, by the way.
For anyone who does not go to the library.
For anyone who doesn't go to the library.
Most people.
Which is probably most people these days. But I actually was reading a thing before the whole pandemic thing happened. I was reading a thing that libraries are actually more popular than ever.
Oh, that's good.
But they are lower funded than ever. Because people like to pretend that they're not as popular as they are. So anyway, let's not get angry and political here about books and how cool books are and how we should respect books. But anyway, fuck books, because here we're going to watch a couple of these movies here that they have in the occult section of the DVD rental section. Borrowing section. You don't rent from a library.
Yes.
That's foolish. It's all free. Just bring it back. All right. So first off, here in our occult movies section, we have Sam Raimi's Evil Dead from 1981. We have Mike Mendez's The Gravedancers from 2006. And then we have John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness from 1994. Is that 3 weeks in a row we've done a John Carpenter movie? Maybe two. We might have skipped a week. But anyway.
Two. And this is like one of the... We actually did two of the is Apocalypse trilogy. It's not like a...
Indeed.
It's not like an official trilogy. It's just
no, it's not.
End of the world nonsense.
No, that's like an after the fact sort of. Oh yeah, I totally meant to have a trilogy. Liar. Anyway, let's sit down and watch these movies. Cool. All right. So, panic aside, John. Avoiding the leaves and the covers and the hardbacks. The hardbacks are really giving me a hard time, to be honest.
Yeah. In the DVD section, they don't seem to be coming down here too much yet.
There's just a couple of pamphlets sort of flying around and trying to give me paper cuts. So, John, before the phone books figure out where we are, what did you think of Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead?
I mean, this movie is a classic for a reason, and it
is.
I mean. I think we've both seen this multiple times.
I actually couldn't. I think I'm going to say that I think I have probably seen the sequel.
Yes.
More, but because I think there's a difference in the tone between these two films. But like this first one is more of a horror film. It's still goofy.
Yeah.
In its own way.
It's kind of goofy though. because they've had to rely, because they had no money for it.
Yeah,
and the effects they've had to use. That's what gives it the goofiness. But I remember the first time I seen this, as like I was probably like a young teenager, probably let's say 13 or 12 or 13, and around that age, and it scared the crap out of me. Even though, like, now I watch it and I laugh and go, "That's so ridiculous," and like, it looks so funny and so daft and almost slapstick. But it scared the bejesus out of me when I was younger.
I think the first time through watching it, I remember seeing it. I was probably about 11 or 12, maybe. I think first time I saw this film, and it did freak me out. There's a lot of tension. In this film, and there's a lot of. There's something about the way it's shot. Sam Raimi, like, it's something that he didn't necessarily carry on into his later films. You see it in a few things that he's done since, like the sequel to this mainly, actually. But he does a lot of oblique angles, and he has an amazing sense for coupling visuals with sound.
Yeah.
There's one particular moment. It all happens all throughout the movie. But there's one particular moment when we are seeing from above our hero, Ash, played ably by Bruce Campbell, of course, a show favourite. We haven't really talked about him that much, but I just know that he's a favourite of ours. So it's looking down on him from above, and it's a really tense scene, and he's like been attacked and freaked out, and it's following him from above, and as it follows him from directly above, the rafters of the ceiling whip across the screen, and every time they do, it makes this whoom, 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 whoom sound as they go by.
Yeah.
And it's so effective. It's so strange and effective. This film is full of tiny little touches like that.
Yeah.
That just like really strike me, especially now when I'm like trying to look at it with a critical eye. And I'm like, I'm looking for flaws almost, I feel, and I'm just like, oh no, that's brilliant. That's this wonderful little thing that's just like, it just adds a sort of a sense of place and feeling. It almost makes it more sort of involved or something. Like, it's more tactile, I guess.
I mean, even the it heavily uses this first person view of kind of the demon, and there's been movies afterwards that have kind of tried to do a similar thing, and it doesn't seem to work as well.
Every time I see that, I always point at the screen and shout, "Evil Dead!"
Yeah, yeah. And it was probably used before Evil Dead. Like, I can't think of examples offhand, but it's used so much in this, and it's to convey a specific thing of like this evil, like basically tracking down our. Well, not just the protagonist, but his friends as well. Yeah. And it works incredibly well. And he has, just what you're saying, the sound, he has this like weird backward kind of like thing going. And it just adds so much to it that I think without it, it wouldn't be as effective. And I said, like, I can't even put my finger on why. Maybe it is because it's just derivative of this film, but why in other movies, when you see it, it doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, the only time I've ever forgiven it is in Evil Dead 2, because he uses it again in that, because Evil Dead 2 is sort of a remake of this film in its weird way.
There was loads of, I kind of was reading up on this, because I kind of, for a while, I just kind of accepted it, but it's because it changed production, that they didn't have the rights for the first film, so they had to basically do like a recap, so that they could get, because it's a remake in the sense like the first like 5-10 minutes kind of retcons the story and makes it a bit quicker. Like, his girlfriend got possessed and he killed her. There we go. And then
they truncate the hell out of the entire plot of the first movie into like, because like they get to it really quick in Evil Dead 2.
Yeah,
the possession stuff happens. Like in this, they take their time establishing the characters, and then like they establish the setting really well in this film. Before they actually eventually manage to come across the book that causes all the problems, and the recording of someone reading from the book that really gets things going. Whereas in the second one, it's just like, oh, here's an old tape recorder. Like they have 5 minutes of Ash and his girlfriend being lovey-dovey, and him giving her the little necklace, which is a callback to this film.
Yeah.
And then it's, oh, there's a tape recorder here, honey, and he plays that, and then she immediately gets possessed as soon as the tape recorder finishes playing, and then that's a whole thing. Whereas in this one, as she does die, they do that all in the same way as well. They do that. His interactions with her is very similar.
Yeah.
But it is just zip into like 2.5 to 3 minutes, as opposed to being drawn out for like, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes. It's a bit sillier, but it looks better, I guess, in the second movie because they have more of a budget. But in this one, I think they do really well with what they've got. Because some of the effects look absolutely daft because it's clearly just like, here's a thing that is a puppet that we're flinging around the place and it looks terrible. But sometimes it's really creepy. And there is one particular effect in this film that ever since I saw it always gives me goosebumps because it looks so real and painful. And it's like the first bad thing. Yeah, it's the first bad thing that happens to someone. And it is just, I saw it this time and it really got to me.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, it's the fact that it goes in and then the pencil gets worked around during. And it's like, well, I guess it's not the first bad thing. It's the first, like...
Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty horrific thing happens to his sister, Cheryl.
Yes, there is. Yeah, and it's her doing the snapping as well. Yeah, it's the whole thing. Yeah, it's nasty. So yeah.
In fact, it might have been the reason that this movie got a very kind of picked on as being a video nasty, and also kind of that leads into why the second one is more slapstick and more kind of horror comedy angle.
Yeah, they didn't want to get banned in the UK.
Yeah, because I think I should maybe look this up before I say it, but I think the first one, this movie was banned for a while, and Sam Raimi was taken to court.
Yeah, no, what happened was, this is in Bruce Campbell's book, If Chins Could Kill, in stores now. I recommend it. I think it's a brilliant book. I read it cover to cover when it came out, and it's wonderful. I think it's about 12 years ago or something. He's
such a cool, down-to-earth guy. It's hard not to like him.
He's so cool. So what happened is him and Bruce Campbell, I think, had to fly to London.
Yes.
And go and like basically defend in court their movie, because there was a lot of stuff going on at the time. In fact, I watched a film sort of about this yesterday called Censor, which I would also recommend. It's brilliant. It's about this specific thing, sort of. But yes, there was a huge sort of right-wing conservative, like crazy hysterical campaign against, these movies are violent and they're causing violence, and it's the kind of thing that always every generation has one. Rock and roll made me do it, basically, because
violence didn't exist before then.
Yeah, because like the Crusades, everyone who was in the Crusades, they were
playing video games. They were
no, they watched zombie flesh eaters.
Oh,
John.
Sorry, yeah,
it was World War One. They were all playing Pac-Man and they got carried away. So anyway. Because of this whole thing anyway, and it was potentially going to be banned. It was delaying the release of it on VHS, which was where it was going to make its money.
Yeah.
So they had to fly out to defend it in court, basically, and say, please don't ban our movie because it doesn't fit your video nasty criteria, which it didn't. And like they went all the way out there, and then what eventually happened was the judge was like, you guys actually don't have a case to answer here.
Yeah.
The judge threw it out because he was like, this actually doesn't, you're right, it doesn't fit this criteria. And
this
it was kind of,
movie is fucking class.
Yes, this movie's really good. Also, it's not about the things, it justifies its content. And I think the fact that it was specifically demonic possession made it okay. If they had been zombies, if they had been mindless zombies, apparently it would have been different.
Weird.
But because it wasn't, and it was about demonic possession, the judge was like, nah, you don't have a case to answer, which I think annoyed them more than anything, because they had to spend a lot of money to go to London.
Yeah.
Like, Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi did not have any money, and they had to go to London, and then I think by the time they got there, and it immediately got thrown out, and they were like,
I think they're doing fine now, though.
They're
so
all right now. But like back in like 1982 or whenever this was, they had to do this. They were like, they didn't have any money, and they were like, we just spent a whole bunch of money coming out here, and yeah, they didn't even have to basically do anything. They were just like, oh, this was a big waste of our time.
The story of the production of this movie is so interesting as well. Like, you know, I'll not go through and go much into it, but it's one of those well-known ones where the cast were really put through the ringer, and as much as they don't really say it now, like there's rumors that, you know, they stormed off. Apart from Bruce Campbell, he was more involved. He was Sam Raimi's mate, and he actually, anytime he's not on camera, he's working behind the scenes. Apparently, the first person shot when it goes over the lake, that's Sam Raimi on a wee raft that's being pushed by Bruce Campbell, which is just kind of like, that'd be awesome just to stumble upon. But
you just see them doing that, and we're like, all right, lads, he's okay out there.
But like, as we said, you know, they had no money. They, you know, they really did. I mean, I'm not even having a go at the other cast for like storming off if they did, because they were kind of, you know, Sam Raimi and all didn't really know what they were doing as far as like the effects and stuff, and they were throwing like buckets of blood in their face, and there was some of them were like kind of choking a bit, and then those contact lenses for when they turn into deadites, you can't see once they're on, and they sound they sound horrendous. As someone who, one of my main kind of like things that really like kind of turn me is things going into people's eyes, or like which so to me I was like, I probably would have been a bit pissed with him. So
I mean, it's like, it's people doing their first movie on a micro budget straight out of film school, working with what they have and maybe trying to overreach a little,
and kind of working with these people, like, because Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, again being close friends, were kind of dicking about and joking about on set a lot. So as an actor there, like, one of your first gigs, you'd be sitting there going, these guys are not making a fucking movie. Like, these guys are absolute jokers. What is this about? You know, it wouldn't inspire confidence, I don't think.
I mean, you can imagine somebody being like, well, this is not a professional outfit. Now, I think the end product is great.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if how it suffered from those things, but I think I mean, we talk about the effects, like, some of the effects are terrible and some of them are really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, particularly actually what you were just saying there, those actual contact lenses, I mean, it's creepy when people are possessed.
Oh yeah.
You know, the whole like all over sort of white eyes, and particularly when it's his girlfriend sitting in the doorway, he's laughing.
Yes, yeah.
Their legs crossed. That was the bit of her, between her and Cheryl in the basement at the trapdoor. Those are the things I remember about Evil Dead the first time through that freaked me the hell out.
Yeah.
Was whenever, it's especially her at the trapdoor watching them, and whenever people are like looking over at her going, why is she staring at us? You know, that stuff always really stuck with me with Evil Dead. But then whenever it gets goofy, it is also kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, and there's blood. There is, like, in you saying about blood being thrown around people, there's blood spraying everywhere in this. Like, there's bits where people are being chopped up with axes and stuff, and that stuff is so goofy and it's going all over the place. And I
kind of like that in this one, Aish isn't the kind of gung-ho hero type character. His friend is more kind of like proactive to begin with. Ash doesn't want to start killing his friends, and he's very reluctant, and it eventually pushes him to the point that he has to survive. I mean, I'm saying that, but I also love where Ash's character, like by the end of this trilogy of movies, and in the Ash versus Evil Dead series, he is wildly entertaining.
Yeah, like, by the time he gets to the second one, he is a man of action.
Yeah.
In this film, he is not a man of action. In this film, he is nervous, he's squirrely, he doesn't want to really take responsibility for anything until he's pretty much the only guy left who's capable of doing anything.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's people who are injured, there's people who are possessed, and he is just like, oh, well, now it's just me, really?
Yeah.
And now I have to do something. Whereas in the second one, he is immediately just like gung-ho. It kind of has a bit of a I'm going mad, but it has that. They do that in this as well, which the part I really like, where they do use sound amazingly well, where he's kind of going crazy and he starts seeing everyone as they were. And that stuff's handled really well. So I think the atmosphere in this film is great. The setting is brilliant. It's your typical cabin in the woods. But for me, it's now the cabin in the woods when I think of cabins in the woods movie. Is that the nomenclature? I don't know.
It is now. Let's go with it.
Yeah. But when I think of like someone says, like whenever I see the title of it, was that film, The Cabin in the Woods, that was a takeoff specifically of this film, sort of actually in a way.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other horror films, but it drew heavily from Evil Dead deliberately.
Evil Dead is like you're not alone in that. I think most people kind of hold it in that regard, that is the quintessential cabin in the wood horror movie. The cabin is perfect and it was real. Like, it's somewhere that they found, and it just works so well. And I think even the fact that it was kind of such a low budget and it was this kind of horrendous conditions probably helped, because I think everyone on edge maybe worked. It's like a Stanley Kubrick kind of approach to making a horror movie, of like, make everyone on edge and horrible, and you'll get this really wrought performance out of them.
Yeah, but people might not look back fondly on the production, though.
No. Oh, they will hate you, but you'll get a good performance out of them.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, so
I'm not in the business of making friends.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but this, so when I think of The Cabin in the Woods, I picture the cabin from this film.
Yeah.
Always. Because they do such a good job of establishing it, especially like when you first see it. And the second one, I don't know if it's the same cabin. It looks very similar in the second one anyway.
I think it is. I'm not really sure it is.
But I think maybe it might be slightly bigger in the second one. I'm not sure, but actually, it's probably the Evil Dead 2 one I think of. But it's very similar, and it's that sort of 2 windows and a door in the middle and a swing chair outside on the porch. That thing. There's always got to be a chair swinging on the porch.
Because I even like that like it's banging against the wall. Until they approach the door, and then it just stops. And you're like, that'd be me out of there. I'd just be like, what the fuck is going on there? That's not normal.
Yeah, it's so effective.
I don't think it would take much for me to like run away in fear, to be honest.
No, I also think that cabin's probably also full of spiders, so I think you might be screwed.
Yeah, I would die a death. I would curl up into a ball and cry.
Indeed, yeah. So this film is technically, I love this film on, like, I love how it's performed. Bruce Campbell, when he's running about the place, is always brilliant.
Yes.
He gets really off the chain in the second one, but in this one he's a bit more reserved.
He's very, this is his first acting gig, really, like his first movie at the very least. And I mean, I even watched a wee interview with him there not long ago, and he said about the Evil Dead, like, someone asked him a question about the Ash vs Evil Dead series, and does he enjoy coming back to the character? And he's like, yes, because now I can act. It's, like, when you look back, like, he's a bit rough. He is very amateurish, but I mean, what do you expect? This guy literally just started.
Absolutely.
But he still has so much charisma and so much character that it still works. It still works well, and he's not atrociously bad. I don't think anyone is really bad in this movie. They all do well enough, and
yeah, for an indie horror movie, it's surprisingly well acted. I'll say that, especially from the early 80s.
And I should say, I'll use this as a wee opportunity, a wee random bit of trivia for you.
Ooh.
The assistant film editor for this movie is none other than Joel Coen.
I saw that when I was watching it.
The Coen brothers.
I saw that when I was watching it, and I was like, is that the same guy?
Yeah.
And then I meant to look it up because I never noticed it before. But
it's the same guy, because I had the same thing where it's like, it can't be Joel Coen, who did Big Lebowski,
but it is though. It is actually him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
I checked, and yeah. So there you go. Random bit of trivia.
That is pretty wild. Like. Also, Rob Tappert in this movie. Also, it's just like, if you look at he also worked on another film that he was a producer on this.
Yeah.
I think they all went to film school together, him
Yeah.
and Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. So he worked on Time Cop for his sins. The fur fucker. And a whole bunch of other things. I mean, he worked on all of these films. Like,
Yeah.
he worked on 1, 2, and Army of Darkness, and the TV show. I think he's down as a producer.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if that's just a hang-on thing because he was a producer on the movies, or whether he was actually involved. It's hard to tell with production credits if someone's really there or not.
Yeah.
Or whether they're just, I'm making money out of this. He's been involved in a lot of like B movies and stuff, and anything that Sam Raimi has done, generally he's on there with him. And usually when he's working with Sam Raimi, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like, have you ever seen The Gift?
The Gift.
It's a Sam Raimi movie about a psychic. It's got Keanu Reeves in it. It's like a weird domestic abuser playing like way off.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. It's really
I
weird.
don't think I have seen. I would have remembered Keanu Reeves being a domestic abuser.
Yeah, it's actually a good one. It's a Sam Raimi one that I quite like. He worked on all the Hercules TV show and the Cena and all that stuff. Yeah, so he's
You know
like,
what? That gave us Lucy Lawless, so that's okay by me.
Indeed, yeah.
We have to endure Kevin Sorbo, but you know.
Oh God, yeah. But we got Lucy Lawless, who is brilliant in the Evil Dead TV show. But that's not what we're talking about here. We need to get this cart back on the rails. So this film's brilliant. I love the technicals. I love the way he uses the camera. And like, I think we should probably finish talking about this soon. But I just want to talk about he uses. As we were talking about during 12 Monkeys, the Dutch angle.
Yes.
He uses that in a way that I find fascinating. There's one particular scene where they pull up. It's the whole like, oh no, the bridge is out and we can't get out of here bit.
Yeah.
Where they suddenly realize they're trapped. There's a part where they pull up to the bridge and the bridge is out and Ash gets out and wanders off and Cheryl, his sister, gets out and is looking for him. And there's this amazing shot where they must have put the car on a hill because it looks vertical. It looks, perfectly horizontal. It looks perfectly flat. But Cheryl is walking away and she is at this like 45-degree angle. And they've just shot it so cleverly so it looks really otherworldly and strange.
Yeah.
Because she's at this, she's not walking on a hill, she must be on a flat surface, and she's like at this where it just looks so cool that it's full of little touches like that.
Yeah.
That I just, every time I see it, I'm like, whoa, how did they do that? And it's probably really simple. You know,
these things usually are, but it's inventive.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it does. Again, the like behind the scenes thing I watched. Someone said in it that all the shots, like everything you visually see in that movie, is Sam Raimi. No one can take that away from him. You know, like you can get other wee things like where the sound design that was my idea, blah blah blah. But someone actually points out that everything you see there is Sam Raimi, and
he's behind the camera.
It shows you like he did have a talent, or he does have a talent for him. So talking about him like he's dead. I mean,
you're talking about him like a man who maybe hasn't made a lot of great films.
Yeah.
He's made a few brilliant ones. I don't know if I necessarily like the Spider-Man movies.
I don't
that
really.
He did. But I remember liking the second one quite a bit. The third one is one of the worst things I've ever seen with my eyes. And he did do that, but I think he did that angrily. I think he didn't want to do that one.
Yeah.
So he made it deliberately bad, I think.
Which is crazy to me. It's like the American Old Boy remake.
Oh, it's so bad. Spike Lee.
Spike Lee,
a talented director who just didn't want to make this film, probably.
Which it shouldn't have been made. Like I agree with him. Well, if he would say that, I would agree that it shouldn't have been made. But it's just crazy to me that these directors can do that. Like they would say, I'm going to make this deliberately shit.
Yeah, I've signed up for this movie with all this responsibility, and I'm going to deliberately make it bad because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, you know, and you watch Spider-Man 3 and you go, oh, Sam Raimi lost it. But then he came out with a film that I love, Drag Me to Hell, which I think is a wonderful thing. It's like everyone was like, Sam Raimi returns to horror, amazing. And I remember seeing all that stuff originally and being like, oh, no. Yeah. And then I watched it and I was so pleased. I was so pleased with everything that happens in Drag Me to Hell, because it has that Evil Dead 2 spirit to it, where it's like, because Evil Dead 2...
Very different, but
It has this is actually kind of scary, but has these moments where it's really goofy and funny, and you're watching something happen that is technically disgusting, but you're laughing at it because it's so ludicrous, which is something that happens all the way through Evil Dead. It doesn't necessarily happen in Evil Dead 1, but in 2 and beyond it does. But I think this film is a great indie horror movie. I think it is a real achievement.
I would go
for
further
someone
than that
with,
and just say I think it's a great movie. I think all the aspects of it work very well. I mean, the script's not gonna, it's not amazing, but it serves its purpose. It gets everyone where they need to be in a believable way. The characters are all well enough realized and acted that you understand their motives. You're right there with Ash. You want him to get away from this, and as a horror movie, it is really unsettling. Even watching it now, I'm not scared, but there are parts of it that do make you go, ugh.
There's that bit of the ankle is just, it always gets me. So anyway, John, yes, you're right for calling me out. I was being reductive by saying, it's a good indie horror movie. I was pigeonholing it too hard there, I think. But it's good. It's entertaining. It is at turns frightening and ever so slightly disturbing here and there. And then it'll pull you back by just being goofy. And I think that is a real achievement. And Sam Raimi, for me, is golden forever. Okay, well, I've never before been assaulted by a pamphlet on genetic engineering, studying, or like ads for universities, but this is starting to get really aggravating. Paper cuts are no joke.
No.
Like, we're still safe from the hardbacks, and that's great. Okay? I'm fine with that. I don't want to be bludgeoned. I'm okay. Apparently I'm okay being tinily sliced, death by 1,000 cuts.
That sounds a lot worse.
It does, doesn't it? Oof.
Or does it maybe? Bludgeoning or cut with tiny wee cut.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? Currently we don't have to make that choice. It may come up soon. We'll see. But in the interim, I would like to know, John, very, very much what you thought of Mike Mendez's The Gravedancers from 2006. Now, there's a whole bunch of different films called Gravedancers and stuff like that. This is, in particular, we need to make it very clear, the one we're talking about is The Gravedancers, all one word, from 2006, directed by Mike Mendez. John, what did you think?
You need to know what one to avoid.
Yes. Careful now. Wait until I ask you. John, what did you think of this terrible piece of trash?
It's wonderfully... See, to be honest, it's not even... It's so bland that you can't even really get too annoyed about it. Yeah. It's one of those horror movies that is just a dime a dozen. They're made all the time, and they just end up in, well, they used to end up in bargain bins. They don't really exist anymore.
No.
They end up on Amazon Prime.
They do. They end up on Amazon.
Specifically in our suggestion list.
Yeah, like if people who watch this also watched, and then you go, and then you sit there and you feel really bad about yourself for like 15 minutes. You go, and then you get over it.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it. You're right. I am going to watch it, but the implication.
I'm not going to be proud of myself afterwards.
Yeah. So what did you think of it then, John? What are your feelings about the film? So you think it's just sort of bland?
It's bland, and it's like every aspect in it is kind of badly done. Like the acting in it is really woeful.
It's unbelievably bad.
Yeah,
at times.
I mean, the acting is particularly. Particularly from the guy from Prison Break, Dominic Purcell, or whatever way you pronounce his last name.
I'm sure he probably pronounces it Purcell. I'm sure.
Purcell.
Yeah, it sounds better for an actor, I think. Yeah.
He is woeful. He cannot emote at all.
No, he can't.
All crazy stuff happening. His wife is almost murdered and stuff, and he still. You'd think it's just a bad day in the office, or.
Yeah.
Actually, even that is giving him some credit. Like you think, no, he's nothing. You get nothing.
Yep, and you can barely. He mumbles all of his lines as well. He's really hard to hear.
Yeah,
he's got a mouthful of marbles. He's not the only one with a mouthful of marbles.
No.
The actress that plays his wife, Claire Kramer, she is abysmal. I've seen her in other things now. She was in a series of Buffy. She was the big bad in a series of Buffy, and in that, she was Glory. And I remember being shocked at how bad an actress she was when I was watching that. Initially in like 2001 or 2000
kind of worked
all
right in that though.
Yeah, because it was a campy bad TV show. Like it was deliberately there were times where Buffy was deliberately silly and campy.
Yeah.
But I remember every scene with her being excruciating because like it was like she was having trouble with every line, and I thought now it turns out that wasn't anything to do with the show.
Yeah.
That's just her acting style. The guy that plays their friend, Marcus Thomas, he plays their friend Sid. I don't know, all of his lines just come out of nowhere. It was like he was just there to tell them what to do next.
Yeah.
So he would just blurt things out like, let's dance on these graves. Which is the plot of the movie is so stupid. And like the twist at the end is crap.
Yeah.
Like they find an envelope on their friend's grave that has a passage in it, and it tells them to dance on some graves.
And then even that's so bad. Like it's such a minor thing, but it's so badly written. It's so it's like some like emo girl in high school. It's like some poetry that she's writing or something. It's so woefully bad.
Yeah, it's I'm 15 and listening to the Smashing Pumpkins, and I
12
wrote
and
a poem. Yeah. It's so bad, and their reasons, the way they get to the places that they get to, and the reasons for going there are so paper thin. Yeah. Like they literally go and break into a graveyard in the middle of the night. They couldn't go back the next day. Oh no. They have to go and break back into the graveyard in the middle of the night to celebrate their dead friend that we know nothing about and don't care. Yeah. And like I thought for ages, there's a point at the very beginning of the film where we see someone die. You see some woman getting hung by like a light cord.
Yeah.
And that is irrelevant.
Yeah.
That means nothing. That is not relevant.
It never comes back.
It never comes up. I thought that's the person whose funeral they were at. Because I thought they were saying... Maybe he got
a sex change. Maybe it was.
Maybe. I don't know, but they kept saying a name. And because they've all got mouths full of marbles, I couldn't understand the name they were saying. I mean, it took me about 2/3 of the film to work out that the main character's name was Harris.
Yes. Yeah.
I couldn't understand the name people were saying in reference to him throughout the most of the film because they're barely vocalizing at all when they're saying their lines. And just the acting is spectacularly bad. All the ghosts look unbelievable. Like we were talking about Evil Dead there in warm tones about the way they used the effects, and whenever they had like sometimes the effects were cheap and it was what they had to work with and it looks a bit goofy, but they shoot it in a way that like you're like, oh, this is kind of funny and it doesn't feel like accidentally funny. All the ghosts in this look awful. They all have this, it's like they had one mask that they just shared between all three of the ghosts.
Do you know what's really weird though? And like I found on YouTube a video of them, making the ghosts for this movie, and I think it's the director talking about it, about how he, sketched these images and all, and he want each of them to like be unique or feel unique, and he failed. He failed spectacularly, and I don't want the reason I'm bringing this up is I don't think the effects company or the effects people that were doing it are to blame, because it seems like conceptually they were terrible from the get-go. Like he was the one that wanted these big stupid like grinning mouths, which again we talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It worked in an episode because it was done better. It worked in an episode called Hush.
Oh, you mean the Gentleman? The second best episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer ever, next to Once More with Feeling. Yes. You mean that episode, John? Yeah. That's genuinely frightening. And in fact, contained an alum of this show, Doug Jones of Guillermo del Toro, Pan's Labyrinth fame, played the lead gentleman in that.
That's right.
And that's why it's so good.
Yeah,
so,
you need someone who can properly like convey the physicality of that role.
Yeah.
Plus, the masks also were like, it's wee subtle, tiny details that make it a lot different. But the masks for Hush are so much more frightening. They serve more of a purpose. In this, it's like, why do all these ghosts have this similar like grinning kind of stupid looking face? And it reminded me, I can't remember in one of the previous casts that we did, I said something about the ghost or the beast, and that reminded me of Aphex Twin Window Licker, and this is exactly the same.
Yes, it's a very similar feeling when I look at that, where I'm like, that looks so daft.
Yeah.
Like, when you first see one of the ghosts, it's a wee bit freaky, and you go, oh, but then you very quickly realize that they all look like that, and it's silly, and of course, they also have, I mean, the ghosts in question are like this, like, oh my gosh. Like, there's one is like a fairly standard, like, oh, this is a child pyromaniac. That's been done before, of course. Yep. One of them is a woman that went a bit mad and killed some people with an axe.
Yeah.
Okay. But one of them is just a nasty rapist.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been done in other films better. There's a film called The Entity that is about, has a similar concept to it, but it's about someone, it's really about someone overcoming their fear of a domestic abuser. That's what The Entity is about. And it is not, whether or not you think The Entity handles that tastefully or not, I don't know. I think The Entity is a very good film. I think that its use of music is incredible, and I just want to talk about The Entity now instead of this film, but I'm trying to link it together. But yes, so it's completely tasteless in this movie.
Yeah.
I'll say that. The rapist ghost in The Entity, it's handled. In The Entity, they approach it sympathetically. Yeah. And there is I don't want to spoil The Entity.
A reason for it.
Yeah, there's a reason for it.
There's no real rhyme or reason for these ghost backstories, let's say. In fact, I really don't want to talk about this movie too much because
me neither.
It is bland, reductive, derivative. It does nothing. It adds nothing to the genre. It doesn't have any interesting camera work. Some of the set design is all right, I suppose. Yeah,
it's mostly, it feels like an episode of like a Monster of the Week TV show.
Yeah, not a particularly memorable one.
But a really bland one, yeah. Like a B-tier episode that nobody really remembers, that you have to, one of those ones, did you remember that episode where, and then you have to explain way too much of the episode before the person goes, oh yeah, remember that one, I think.
Yeah, it was shit.
Yeah, it wasn't that good. I don't really... No,
Why did you bring it up?
Yeah, so this film's kind of rubbish in every way. Like, nobody's very good in it. There's one actor who I kind of liked. The sort of the scientist, I guess. He's like a parapsychologist. Oh, sorry,
you're talking about the only actor in the movie?
Yeah, the actor in the film.
Oh,
you know,
yes,
the actor.
Yeah, I remember the actor.
I guess it's kind of like when we watched House of the Dead and Jürgen Prochnow showed up, who will come up later in this episode. Like, because in House of the Dead, everybody is absolutely 100% atrocious, and then Jürgen Prochnow shows up, and you think, oh, brilliant, there's Jürgen Prochnow. Maybe we're going to get something, but then he doesn't even get a chance to do anything with the script. It's kind of similar in this, although this guy does this. I don't know how to say his name, and I feel bad. And I think it's Checky Cario is how his name is pronounced.
Well, I'm not gonna attempt because I can barely pronounce my own name.
Well, he's a decent actor, and he does quite well. He's the only one who's showing real emotion and changes in his face whenever he's talking about things. And it was refreshing when he showed up. I was like, oh, here's someone to cling on to. And actually, that did carry me through the film, because he was kind of fun, and he was cheeky, and there were times where he looked really worried and times where he looked happy and sad, and nobody else had any of those emotions.
No.
So it was good that he was there, but it did not elevate the film enough to make it any way memorable. I'm sorry, Mr. Cario. I'm sorry. Okay, right, this has gotten out of hand now because, as I was mentioned, I made the mistake of mentioning phone books, and now I've got the town census trying to clobber me around the head. And, Johnny, you doing okay over there? Are you handling those dictionaries all right?
Yeah, just taking refuge under this table here.
Yeah, you know what, let's just flip these things over and make a fort. Hold on. Okay, cool. Right, they're on the outside trying to get in. That's fine. We are protected for the moment. So we just got through watching John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, somehow in the middle of this maelstrom. So John, what did you think of John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness?
This was a nice little palate cleanser after the Gravedancers.
The lemon sorbet of films is what this was.
I love In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah.
It has been a while since I last seen it.
Same here.
And I was glad it kind of, because last week we were talking about Prince of Darkness, and that, after rewatching that, it didn't have the same impact on me. In fact, I kind of realized I don't really like it that much. This is the complete opposite. I love Sam Neill in this. I love the direction in this. Our good friend Jürgen Prochnow is back.
Yeah, Jürgen Prochnow is so good in this film as I don't want to say he's evil, because he's kind of not evil.
Well, he's not
good. It's hard to say, because we're in that sort of, much like we were with The Void, we're in that sort of H.P. Lovecraft adjacent movie section where you're watching it and you're like, the whole way through, you're like, is this a Lovecraft thing?
Yeah.
That I missed? And then you look it up and you're like, no, it's not, but it totally could be.
Especially the title is literally a variation on
At the Mountains of Madness.
At the Mountains of Madness, sorry,
Yeah, which is a great wee story that I like. This film, it's this weird sort of love letter to things like Lovecraft and also Stephen King, and they name check Stephen King in this once or twice as well.
John Carpenter and Stephen King were, well, from what I've heard, they're quite close friends. So that, like, the inclusion of them saying Sutter Kane, he's much better than Stephen King, like, he doesn't even compete. That's like, that's just John Carpenter messing with his mate and going, fuck you.
Wait till he comes to see my movie. Which is good.
Which I can completely get on board with. I would totally do.
Absolutely.
But the movie's definitely carried by a very strong performance from Sam Neill, who, I'm not sure if we mentioned in Event Horizon, but I think he's such an overlooked actor. Like, he's so underrated as an actor, I find.
There's so many things I've seen him in where I'm just like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And he's done so much in recent years as well that might have been overlooked, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like he's done a few things with Taika Waititi.
Wonderful.
And one in particular, there's a film named The Hunt for the Wilder People.
Absolutely.
Which is
fantastic
one of the
movie.
best films. Yes, it is one of the best films I have ever seen. It's so well put together, and it's so witty and clever and heartwarming and heartbreaking. And thanks in huge part to Sam Neill's performance in that film. And he's brilliant in this.
Yeah.
He is perfect in this for the kind of film this is, for the kind of character that he's playing.
He's not playing like just your general protagonist in a way. There's a bit more nuance to him. He's kind of arrogant, and I mean there've been arrogant characters before, but he's kind of it's hard to kind of pin it down to any one thing, but he feels real, which is kind of works in with the whole end of the movie as well, of like the twist in it essentially, but and like he plays this skeptic character very well, of the whole way through he's basically like going, no, this is ridiculous, I'm not in a book.
Yeah, and he's like, the whole time he's just like, no, you've set this up. Like, he's insisting to the publishers and anyone from there that like, oh, you're trying to get me here. Well done. Well done. It's a really good theme park ride you're doing here. I'm sure the tourists will love it.
And he plays the screaming lunatic really well at the start. From the very start, he's being dragged in, going mental.
Yep. Which is a really great. Which is drawn directly from there's a bunch of different H.P. Lovecraft stories that start off with someone being put in a mental institution and then being questioned by someone about what happened, and then being like, "I'll tell you what happened, but you don't want to know, but I'm going to tell you, and you're going to be sorry that you asked me." There's so many. There's
I'm not insane.
Yeah, there's the testimony of Randolph Carter, I think, is one where it's a guy in a police cell who's like, "I'm going to tell you what happened to my friend, but you will be sorry that you asked me, and this is your last chance to just walk out of here and just leave it." And of course they don't, and the person and that as well is two great actors in that scene as well. The guy that comes to see him, David Warner, who is again an alumni of Terry Gilliam. He played Evil in Time Bandits, and he's so good in that. But he's brilliant in this. Is the sort of I'm your friend, but he's not. I'm just here to learn about what happened to you, and
even at the point that he comes in, because this is spoilers for this 1994 movie, but when he comes in, the doctor even says to him, and it kind of something that foreshadows the rest of the movie, is things must be getting very bad out there.
Yeah,
where the apocalypse is happening. Life's still kind of, at this point in the movie, life's still kind of semi-normal, but people are aware shit is going wild here. People are going crazy, and I like those wee moments.
Yeah, he says to him, "Things are getting bad out there, aren't they?" And he refuses to answer, and you're like, okay, all right. So this film, I think, is... I think the pacing in this film is pretty good for the most part.
It does falter a few times,
the middle third of it, not even the middle third, sort of maybe the second quarter of it drags a bit, but it really picks up and then runs with it, and then just gets weird and intense and strange.
I think the only thing that kind of helps it when the pacing does drop is that it's got a bit of a... It still has the mystery around it. You're right, the pacing does drop shockingly at that point, but you're still kind of on board because you're like, I want to know what the fuck's going on here.
Yeah, it's mostly him reading these books and trying to work things out, and then you have that great moment where he puts together the map from all the book covers, and you're like, okay, this is actually really going somewhere now. And then it just gets more and more interesting from there, and they get to the weird little town, and you're just like, this place is it feels like there's a TV show that I haven't watched yet that I have on sort of my list of things to get to, called Castle Rock, which is it's set in a town.
I've heard good things about it.
It's a Stephen King adjacent thing where all of the Stephen King books really happened. And this is this town of Castle Rock where all these different characters from various Stephen King novels pass through or live there, and stuff like that. And it feels like it's a town like that, but it's this other writer. It's a Sutter Kane guy, and it's his weird town where Stephen King always has things happening in a town called Derry. And the town called Derry will skip around to different states. It's usually in maybe the northeast of America, like in Maine or New England or something like that. It's usually around there, but it's always Derry. So that's a direct reference to Stephen King there, of this weird town where all these things always happen. So then he's in this town and he's like, yeah, here's this weird hotel where this thing happened, and there's this weird bar where all this stuff happened, and that's this and that's that. And he still is just like, oh, this is a great carnival ride. And it makes sense from his perspective that he doesn't believe it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so daft, But they do a really great job, I think, with sort of the unknowable terrors in this, I think, by not showing you too much of them.
Yeah.
And his,
because it's more about his sense of reality being messed with. And that's kind of the thing with Lovecraft stuff, is the way it's described in the books, it's indescribable. So
how do you interpret that into an
so it's
image?
always difficult to know. It's very difficult to make movies on something that is indescribable. They tend to just add tentacles and
slime.
Which kind of works well and generally, but no, I like that this movie is very, very focused on Sam Neill's character and his perception of reality, and like the breaking down of his perceptions and completely turning his world around.
Yeah, he does a really good job of a man who doesn't believe anything that's happening.
Yeah.
Even after it, but then when he's all in on it, he's also just like, oh, I'm losing my mind. Like the part where, like the first time you really get to see him after he gets dragged in, and the doctor goes to see him, and he's drawn crosses all over his cell.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, right, he's gone crazy. But then it's like, oh no, he's done it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because he's like, yeah, well, I mean, they have to keep me in here now. Look at what I've done. Because he just wants to be safe. He just wants to stay in this cell that's locked.
Yeah. Because
he feels safer in there, because he knows what's going to happen outside. That's a nice touch. They don't just make him crazy.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, it's almost like he's the only sane one left at a certain point. And everyone else is crazy.
Which kind of, when he's in the car ride with Linda, I think that you call the woman, she says something along those lines of like, if you were the only sane one left and blah, blah, blah. And he literally says, that would never happen to me. And you're like, whoa.
Foreshadowing. Ooh. Yeah. Absolute nonsense. So yeah, I love this film. I think this film is for the most part quite well paced.
Yeah.
It's really nicely shot. The acting is brilliant and exactly the level it needs to be. Jürgen Prochnow is fantastic as this enigmatic weirdo who is writing reality in his weird creepy red room in this fucking really cool looking church.
Yeah. Which apparently exists. That's an action. Yeah. Like, it's not like it's a model or anything like that, or it was constructed for this movie. It just somewhere they found and went, yep, that's it.
Yeah, that's a horrifying structure. Let's make that the focal point of this story. So yeah, that's all really good. The effects are fun and goofy and sometimes actually horrible and disturbing.
Yeah.
They do a lot of stuff with like subtle makeup stuff here and there. Like a lot of people who are affected, their sort of their eyes are different.
Yeah.
And sort of like they got like double irises, this double iris
really
thing
cool.
going on. And that's very cool. And like the recurring dreams that he's having about the cop beating the guy in the alleyway.
Yeah.
The way that comes back as like sort of a coda throughout the whole film is really nice. It's sort of comforting when it comes back now and then, where you feel like you're finding your center again every time that comes up. Like the tentacles look cool. Again, but he made the thing. John Carpenter made the thing.
He knows how to do tentacles.
He knows how to do tentacles real good. They're not as goopy in this as they are in the thing.
No.
Because they don't need to be. It's not the same. It's different enough. And just like all the sort of little side characters that you see around the town are brilliant. The dickhead from Ghostbusters 2 is in this as well. The guy that plays Vigo in the painting is in it. He doesn't have a lot of lines because he's terrible. He's not a good actor. But he is Vigo. But he is Vigo.
No one can ever take that away from him.
Yeah, well, Max von Sydow kind of took it away from him by doing his voice for the film in Ghostbusters 2. But yeah, he's not very good in this. You can see why they dubbed him over like for Ghostbusters 2. But he's grand in this as someone who's a character from a book, who's been shoved into real life and is sort of aware that that's what's happened to them. He's actually okay. Everybody's good.
Yeah.
It all just comes together really nicely. Like to the at the point where you'd expect it to just end, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I like about this movie, because this time round it's been so long since I saw this film that I'd forgotten the final sort of chapter. And there's a point where I was almost expecting and ready to be disappointed almost by the end, where I was like, oh, it's just going to cut to black and do credits now, and then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it goes on, and then the ending I found to be actually really satisfying.
It is, yeah. And
the very end was really satisfying, and it was skating along being disappointing for like a solid like 6 or 7 minutes, where I was like, oh, I don't know, where's this going? And then I was like, oh no, that's great. That actually works so well.
Yeah.
It's so
it's
good.
Very like, I kind of want to talk about the ending a bit. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, major spoilers, I suppose. But
maybe skip ahead.
Maybe just go and watch it because it's great
at this point, or go watch the film. Yeah. All the timestamps are always in the description, so you can skip ahead to decision time if you don't want to hear the end of In the Mouth of Madness. But yes, so here we go.
But yeah, I just love that. Very, very rarely do we see like a kind of meta thing like this in movies, and it reminds me so much of like Flann O'Brien, because he at Swim Two Birds specifically, because he deals with his characters trying to track down the author and stuff like this. And this is done so well, and it brings it then into the medium, because the old ones, these Lovecraftian old ones, they're trying to reach a broad audience, and they're trying to get as many people under their influence as possible. So of course they want movies, and of course this book gets adapted into a movie. But not only that, it's basically starring Sam Neill, and it's directed by John Carter. Like everything's just
he's on the poster. It's like it's I imagine that's probably the poster for the movie that they used.
I hope so. And like it's just this wonderful meta thing that just it just makes so much sense at the end, and his reaction to it is perfect, because it's that manic laughter turning to crying, but kind of sitting right in the middle between crying and laughing, and
while he's shoving popcorn into his mouth as well.
It's brilliant. The ending, I just think, really, it doesn't make the movie, but it's the cherry on the cake. It just it makes everything that you just watched, well, like, it makes those slow moments in it worth it. It makes the pacing problems that you have like halfway through kind of irrelevant, because where you got in the end was just pitch perfect for that movie.
Exactly. Yes, because the point where I thought the movie was going to end, because I didn't remember it well enough, the point where I thought the movie was going to end was he's in the cell. It goes back to him, and he's just sitting in the cell, and David Warner has left him.
Yeah.
And everything's going crazy, and people are being murdered outside, and you see the door boom, go in.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, and it all cuts to black. And I was like, that would actually be a kind of okay ending, I guess. But then it cuts back, and it's the morning, and he's still there. And you think, oh, is this going to just, something's going to get him now, and that's going to be it. But then he leaves his cell and goes for a walk.
Yeah.
And that's the point where I was like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
That he's now out in this world that we know. We know this world is falling to pieces now.
Yeah.
And he's away out into it. It kind of reminded me a little bit again of Day of the Triffids.
Yes, yeah.
That part where he's wandering around London, which was redone again in 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of that when he's walking through the streets and there's just detritus blowing around everywhere. It really put me in mind of that.
It's the aftermath of a carnage rather than the carnage.
Yeah.
And it works a lot better in this movie. It's a lot creepier to have this, that he's just like, we still don't really know what exactly happened. You kind of get an idea that people went crazy, but was there maybe more to it? Was there beats? Did the old ones appear?
You hear some stuff as he's walking by in that end scene. There's some stuff. There's like a car radio playing, and you hear a news report.
Yeah.
And they're a little vague. They talk about people changing into something else. So it's implied that's going, but they're never specific. And they leave that nicely unknown. I think that is a really good little touch where you don't know exactly what's happened, but you still get a conclusion at the end of the film. You still get what happens to him. Like, what happens to the wider world, we can guess. That's fine, but it's just the point where he goes into the cinema, he sees himself on the posters, and he goes in and sits down, he gets the popcorn, and he goes in and sits down in the empty theater, and the film is just playing, and then you see literal clips of the film you just watched.
Yeah.
And he just, as sort of realization properly dawns on him, that that Sutter Kane was telling him the truth.
Yeah.
That he wrote him, and like he was you're going to be my messenger and all that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And like the bit where there's a bit actually earlier where he's in his dreams or whatever, and he's like, did I ever tell you my favorite color was blue? And then he wakes up and everyone's wearing blue, and the sky, like the light coming through the window is like got a bluish tinge to it. That stuff, that's great. I love
also
that.
read that from the very start, any close-ups of people, they have blue eyes.
Everyone's
there's
got
a
blue
lot
eyes?
of there's a lot of like blue is placed. It makes me want to watch the movie again, even though I've just literally just watched it. But
Okay.
apparently there is a lot of like placement of blue to show, and I think it gets increasingly more and more, in the scenes, to show that he's getting stronger. That Sutter Kane is becoming much more of an influence. Which is again just great. Like, wee subtle things like that always add to a narrative like this. But
they deepen the world without hammering you over the head with it.
Yeah,
it's just little subtle touches that they do in like pre-production almost, and then like that's done. That's just going to be in the movie now. We don't need to hammer that home.
Yeah.
Everybody's just got blue eyes. Well, everybody that we're going to do a close-up on has blue eyes. That's really cool.
I want to
Except for
double
maybe-
check it, because it's something I read kind of after I watched it and was like, oh my god, I never caught on to that aspect.
Aye.
But
Like, maybe it's not in there, but it bears investigating.
it does, yeah.
It bears investigating.
There you go,
just
everyone.
go
That's
back
your
and watch
homework.
it.
Go and watch In the Mouth of Madness, and then forget what I said, and then go, oh fuck, I was meant to check if people had blue eyes, and then watch it a second time.
It wouldn't be the first time I have watched the same John Carpenter film twice in 1 week.
Twice in
off
one
my
day
own
for
bat.
you.
Usually, to be honest, I did watch The Thing twice in 1 day. Actually, the first time.
I am
the
not
first-
surprised. Oh,
The first time I went.
shock.
I know, the first time whenever I bought The Thing on DVD. Because I'd seen it once on TV years before. Here we are, just talking about The Thing.
Yeah.
I had seen it once on TV years before.
Just watch it at half
And-
speed. I'll be fine.
And it had made an impact. And I remember just being like I think it was HMV in Belfast, and I saw the cover of The Thing, and I was like, oh, that's a really good movie, right? I was like, I don't know, it's probably about 15 maybe. And I grabbed it and bought it. I didn't get ID'd, thank fuck, because I think it was
you've
an 18.
never been the same since.
And yeah, no, I did. Like, I watched it. I went home and I stuck it on and I watched it. And then I was like, I remember sitting at the end of it being like, that was marvelous. And then I did immediately, like about 10 minutes later, I stuck it on and I watched the whole thing again. That might sound psychotic, but it's what I did, and I'm going to own it.
Yeah.
As I've said before, I'm going to show my shame. I don't care. It's fine.
I'm slowly moving away from you, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm not a monster. I'm probably not a monster.
Probably
anyway,
not.
you got more to worry about here from these books. So I will just end by saying that John Carpenter is sometimes a great director.
He's amazing. Is this his only good movie of the 90s?
Oh, well, actually,
Because the 90s was a bad time for
we should examine that.
John.
Yes, I would agree with that. In fact, I believe I have said openly before that his output in the 80s is brilliant, pretty consistently, and his output in the 90s maybe not so much. So let's just a quick aside. We'll just go through his 90s productions, and I'll give you a sort of a
El Diablo
an
and Blood
idea.
River TV movies that I haven't seen. Oh no, they're just
neither have
written by
I.
him.
Yeah, let's just go with directed by. So I'm just gonna say, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, not great.
But that's where he got to work with Sam Neill for the first time.
Yeah,
So
which is
We
nice.
did
yeah.
get a part of this movie from it. So
Yeah, then with Body Bags, which is a segment of that I haven't seen, so I'm not going to offer an opinion of.
No.
I assume it's a wee short thing in an anthology thing. It looks like.
yeah,
In the Mouth of Madness, of course, we know how we feel about that. We've
wonderful.
just said it's really good. Village of the Damned is up next. Now, I remember really liking this, and we might actually end up doing it on a future episode.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. It might be bad. I don't know. Escape from LA is one of the most disappointing sequels in the history of cinema. However, I do enjoy something about
there's
it.
something kind of campy
Yeah.
fun about it.
Yeah, Escape from New York is an action horror film and works very, very well from that in that oeuvre. Escape from LA is like a weird off-kilter remake of Escape from New York because it has all the same plot points and everything
Yeah.
that happen. Sort of they just sub in different actors and characters to perform all the same roles. It's weird. So it's not a great movie, but I do enjoy it. John Carpenter's Vampires. Go back and listen to our Vampires episode if you want to know what we think about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we're not telling you. You're not getting that for free. Well,
And
you
I'm not
can, because
including
that podcast is free, so just go listen.
Indeed, yeah. And of course, now he probably started making Ghosts of Mars in the 90s, so we'll just include it. It came out in 2001. But it is a goddamn trash fire, and it's awful. So I'm gonna say you're maybe right there. I'm gonna say you're maybe right. Now, Village of the Damned, I think will warrant a viewing for me to really give my opinion on it. But
we'll maybe get to that sometime.
I have a funny feeling it might not hold up too good. But In the Mouth of Madness is wonderful, and it's right. It's sort of at the beginning of the decline. Let's say it might be his last really good movie.
Yeah.
Because everything else he's done after that has been kind of awful.
That's a shame. That's a shame. Come back to us, John Carpenter.
Come back from the brink, or don't.
We know you still have it in you.
Yeah, does he? I don't know. I don't know if he does, because he did The Ward in 2010, and I went to the cinema to see that, and I was really upset. I was really upset by how bad and predictable that film was. So maybe don't. But thank you, John Carpenter, for all the stuff you did.
Yes, including In the Mouth of Madness.
Very much including In the Mouth of Madness. All right, well, our fort of tables is holding up fairly well. It's starting to splinter at the edges, and I think the ghosts and the demonically possessed and the books have all joined forces out there to chip away at our defenses. So we might be about to be torn asunder by that which has been wrought from reading books.
There's a particularly hefty version of War and Peace coming our way here.
Oh man, yeah, they have like 3 copies of it, and Crime and Punishment. They're all ganging up. I think actually the Crime and Punishment seems to be fighting them. It's some kind of, is it like a Russian writer rivalry or something? I think might be. I don't know. But they seem to be scrapping with each other intermittently, which is good for us. That might help with the whole distraction thing.
Yeah.
But before we're horribly destroyed by all of this terrible book-related nonsense, John, which of these movies did you think was the best movie?
Well, between these two movies,
the two movies that we talked about. Yeah,
it's really tough because I kind of love both of them, but for very, very different reasons, and I'm not sure, because I have this weird thing with The Evil Dead where, as soon as I watch the first one, it's like I go, you know what? I think that one's better than the second one. So then I instantly watch the second one. And then I go, you know what? I'm not sure which one's better. So I better watch Army of Darkness. And then I sit there and go, all 3 of them are very good and very different movies, and I love all of them. So I don't get anywhere.
You basically you didn't find a conclusion.
No, because they are all very different. So we're talking about the first one, like
if you just had to compare Evil Dead, the film Evil Dead, to In the Mouth of Madness.
See, I'm a sucker for these kind of like more meta, like more question your reality type things. And
I know what you mean.
I do like a bit of like Lovecraftian nonsense in the mix. Plus, you're talking Sam Neill.
Yeah. He's really good.
He's good in this.
And yes, Bruce Campbell is great, but in this movie, he hadn't quite found his feet with that stuff yet.
No.
So it might be... See, whenever we went into this and we initially had this initial list, I was like, oh, Evil Dead's a shoo-in.
Yeah, I was the same. I was like, well, I know before we watch these 3 movies what one's going to get my pick.
It's so tough because I feel bad not picking Evil Dead almost, because it's such a ingrained part of my life in a way. In that, not to sound grandiose about Evil Dead, it sounds so silly, but it is this thing that it's this movie that I have seen a large number of times. I've engaged with the series a lot. Yes. I'll say. I think Evil Dead 2 might be the best film in the series.
Yeah.
But
could be.
Again, I'm finding trouble even maybe saying that for certain. Because again, like you said, each of the films in the trilogy of Evil Dead movies is so tonally different.
Yeah.
Now, there is some shared stuff.
Especially this first one compared to the other 2 have a bit more of a similar, they've got that whole comedy thing going on in them, so they're a bit more similar, but this one is very much what we said. It's a low budget horror movie.
It is, yes. It's in that Uber. Like, the third one is just ludicrous from start to finish. That Army of Darkness is absolute ridiculous madcap madness from start to finish.
Klaatu Aramato.
Yeah. No, it's Klaatu Barata Nikto, which is, oh, here we go. Fucking it's actually
Shut up, nerd. Right, I'm picking about the madness then.
I'm just saying it's a quote from The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's the shutdown code for the robot in The Day the Earth Stood Still.
That's right.
Secretly, but then also he doesn't remember. Oh, Bruce Campbell's so funny in that scene when he can't remember the words. Anyway, we're not talking about that. No. So, are you picking In the Mouth of Madness? Because I don't know if
I don't know. It is actually. I know whatever one I pick. I'll regret it. I'll listen to this episode once it's done, and I'll sit there and go, I should have picked the other one.
I think I'm gonna go with Evil Dead because, and I feel like, it's just I've seen it so many times, and there's a reason I watched it so many times is that I do love what they did with their budget. In the Mouth of Madness is brilliant for all the reasons you said. Mm-hmm. The effects in it are really cool. They're very tactile and yick.
The tearing himself apart bit.
The bit where he's like a page in a book that looks goofy.
It's a wee bit dated. Just it's 90s effects. It's not.
Yeah, it's like green screen kind of. This is obviously a green screen.
I think it's conceptually it's a good idea. It's just I can't imagine it even these days being done in a way that would look good. It's going to look a wee bit kind of janky and rubbish, but I like it. I like the concept of the idea.
Yeah. It visually gets the point across, but it does look. You look at it and you go, "Well, that's a special effect that didn't come out so well." So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with Evil Dead because I don't know. Maybe it's the gore factor, or I don't know. It creeps me out still a little bit at times, and I think that's for a movie that I've seen so many times. I think that's a huge thing. That's an achievement. That there's still some stuff when his girlfriend's sitting cross-legged in the doorway and laughing and like just repeating ad nauseum things over and over again. It's still creepy, and that ankle thing with the pencil is never gonna leave me as long as I live. It's never gonna leave me, and it looks so good. It looks really real, which makes it even worse, which is brilliant. So I'm having Evil Dead. For this.
I think I'll go for In the Mouth of Madness then, because then I can, if I want to watch Evil Dead, I'll just borrow your heart. I'll just remove it from your chest.
Indeed, but I would like to say that I also really liked In the Mouth of Madness a lot.
I think this is one of the more difficult choices I've had to make at the end. Usually I'm very quick to go, I know exactly what one it is, but I mean, as much as In the Mouth of Madness does have those pacing problems in and around the middle,
they're
I
not
just
huge,
love as we said, the end that end is so good. When the end hits, it kind of completely washes that away for me, and
it's very, very, it's a very good ending, and I think the only reason I noticed the pacing problems is that I was kind of looking while I was watching it, for I feel like maybe it is dragging a wee bit here, but it still didn't lose me though. It never lost me. So
I'm kind of hoping I'm going to pick In the Mouth of Madness, and then I'm hoping somewhere along the way we have to cover Evil Dead 2, and I can just pick that one.
And you can have that, and then we'll both pick that one probably. Yeah. Right, so I don't think we're going to discuss the Gravedancers in a critical way at all, because it was absolutely terrible. Now, this is something that I meant to mention while we were talking about it, and I didn't, so I'm just going to bring it up now. I think Gravedancers is a great example of why aggregate review websites are not necessarily a great mark for the quality of a film, because this film, I think we can universally agree that almost even from objectively, this film is badly made and everything. It's bad. It's just really unremarkable and crap. Now, this film has a 100% freshness rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is just a really good example of why when you go to look for the review of something, you shouldn't just look at that aggregate number and say that's a measure of the quality of a film. What you need to do is, especially this is a film that was not widely reviewed.
Yeah.
In fact, all of the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes are from horror-specific websites. And I've said this before about, like, end of year lists of, like, what are the best horror movies that came out this year, and it's always, horror focused websites like Bloody Disgusting and things like that.
Absolutely crazy.
And they always have to pad out their lists, and whenever you see a review of a film on a horror focused website, you should always, in any genre focused website, really, you should always take it with a huge fistful of salt. Because all of the
any
reviews
review in general, like, even we're giving our reviews essentially here, and someone could watch both these movies that we love and go, they're fucking terrible.
Absolutely, yes. So like, a review in that sense is a subjective opinion, but when it comes to, I'm just this is just a warning about aggregators, really.
Yes,
Metacritic as well, for like video games and stuff. People go to Metacritic and get mad about the meta score of video games to the point where
crazy thing
to the point where they send death threats to reviewers because their game that they love didn't get a perfect 10 because one reviewer maybe gave it like a 7 or an 8 instead of a 10 out of 10, which actually happened to Jim Sterling when he reviewed Zelda's Breath of the Wild.
Wow.
He got threats, and because it was getting perfect 10s from everybody, and he gave it like a 7 or something, like, because he wasn't that into it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And crazy Nintendo fans got mad at him because
too good for him.
Yeah, because he ruined the meta score, which is the stupidest thing I could imagine somebody getting upset about.
I mean, we live in a terrible time. We actually kind of live in a similar kind of world to the end of In the Mouth of Madness.
In a lot of ways,
like,
yes.
People are insane. People send people death threats over video games, over like doing the voice acting in a video game that they didn't like, or as you say, giving something a bad review, or giving your opinion. It's we are in the end of days.
Indeed, yes. But that being the case, and we thoroughly are, you and I might be in the end of days here, John. Which of these do you think is the best film for helping us get out of being killed by evil books or evil texts? What one gives us the best advice? What do we do? I mean, how do they solve the problems? How do we solve this problem using the information we now have?
I mean, the Evil Dead route seems to just be dismemberment, which I'm kind of on board with.
But what are we dismembering? Because
right enough.
I mean, we could dismember the possessed people, but the ghosts,
How do you dismember a ghost?
What if we get possessed? I mean, there's a solution in Evil Dead 2, but we can't consider that.
No.
Right now, because it's not one of our movies.
Yeah. If only they had that in this video library.
The solution in the Gravedancers is doesn't even
berry stuff.
Berry stuff.
That's the thing about Gravedancers. Like, I only seen it a few days ago, and I forget it so much already.
I think they defeat the ghosts by literally slam dunking their heads into a hole in the ground like it's a basketball hoop. And then light comes out of it, and then everything's fine. You say that,
and that I automatically think I would remember something as cool as that.
It wasn't cool, John. It's just the only way I could find to sort of. That's the only simile I could use to describe how it happens.
It's like Space Jam with ghosts.
Yeah, the terrible actress slam dunks stuff in a bag into a hole in the ground, and that counts as burying the bodies, apparently. Wow. And then everything is sorted. But then evil graveyard keeper is seeding more letters. I don't know. Yeah, it's so daft. So screw that stuff.
I mean, if In the Mouth of Madness is anything to go by, we're not going to get out of this unscathed, but we just need to kind of run down a tunnel and basically leave. Because that seems to be what he does. Just like Sutter Kane kind of goes to him, oh, that's the way out, and he leaves, and he ends up in an asylum.
He does. I mean, that's like, the movie opens with him being put in the asylum.
Actually, he ends up in the asylum because he kills the kid who comes out with the bleeding eyes with the book. So as long as we don't murder anyone, I think we just need to leave and pretend that none of this happened, and just let whoever comes in here next deal with it.
So we just close our eyes and head for the doors and try to ignore the books that bash us in the face. Okay, I can do that, John.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Bury our heads in the sand, so to speak.
Well, I'd say we pick up this table here and we sort of carry it on our shoulders and hold it in front of their faces, because I don't want to get a broke nose. You know, that stuff hurts. I'll be sneezing. I sneeze a lot. Could you imagine sneezing with a broken nose? No, thank you. And like, have you ever been hit with the spine of a book? Because I have. Yeah. That's no joke. So, right, we'll get this stuff hoisted up on our shoulders and we'll just head towards the exit. And whenever the librarians come back in the morning to open this place up, it's their problem. Okay, cool. Off we go. So, we are on Twitter. We are at 7 Day Apocalypse. That is at numeral 7 Day Apocalypse. If you want to contact us via email, you can contact us at filmcast@thisweeksapocalypse.com. That's filmcast@thisweeksapocalypse.com. Little shout out to our podcast artist, logo designer, all that stuff. One wee day at a time on Instagram. Go like their stuff. That would be super cool. And off we go. Klaatu Barata Nikto, I guess. And charge! Yeah!